Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Brew Talks. I did not expect applause. I am Justin Kendall. I am the editor of Brewbound. This is my maiden voyage doing Brew Talks. So thank you all for coming out today. Thank you to Dogfish for sponsoring us. Thank you to our other sponsors, Vicinity Brew, Reyes, Pro Refrigeration, ABS Capital, and Altazan. We couldn't do it without them. We couldn't do it without Dogfish. And thank you for supporting the Colorado Craft Brewers Guild. Some of the proceeds are going to them today, so thank you. So we've got a great panel here. We've got two panels, actually. We've got Mr. Sam Calagione coming up this afternoon. But first, we're going to talk expanding portfolios into beyond beer. And here we go. So hard seltzer was all the rage this summer. Nielsen estimated that it's going to be a $1 billion industry by the end of the summer, or by the end of the year. And Bart Watson, the chief economist of the Brewers Association, he's estimating that hard seltzer will be 4 million barrels by the end of the year. That's a lot of volume coming back into beer. And my former colleague, Chris Fernari, by his count, there are 71 companies making hard seltzer now. And a lot of them are coming from craft breweries. And if you hadn't heard, there was a White Claw shortage this summer. And now we have dedicated tap rooms to hard seltzer. We have dedicated festivals. So it's kind of taking over. But beyond craft beer and beyond hard seltzer, companies are making other types of products. They're making wine. They're making canned cocktails. There's even hard coffee at this point, tea, cider, kombucha. The list goes on. And I've got three guys up here to talk about it. To my left, Eric Smitty Smith, the Chief Sales and Marketing Officer for Odell Brewing. Matt Fraser in the middle, President of CANarchy Craft Brewery Collective. And on the end, Garrett Marrero of Maui Brewing, the founder. Guys, welcome to Brew Talks.
Thank you.
Aloha, thanks for having us.
So I set it all up, and now I got to break it down. Eric, you're going to break some news here. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, give you a couple of minutes to let everybody know what's up.
Oh, thank you, Justin. Justin had asked when Odell and I about this. So the Odells were celebrating our 30th year. Been brewing. Doug, Wynn, and Corky started it in Colorado. And about 5 years ago, they started thinking about their succession plan and what they're doing. And about 5 years ago now, about 4 years ago in 2015, we put into place an ESOP and a management buyout. But since January, Wynn, and she's in the audience as well. So Wynn and I have been serving as co-CEOs. And Wynn will serve in that role until Q1 of 2020, where I will and then take over. But over the course of this year, it's been a pleasure to work with Wynn on building a team, getting the right people on the bus. We have a great executive team, and we're leading the next level of leaders up behind us. So we've been working hard on that. So I think Justin has an article coming out.
Yeah, it should be on brewbound.com very shortly, so you can read all about it at brewbound.com. Yeah, somebody hit the button now, please. So yeah, congratulations. Congratulations to the Odells. 30 years, 25 from Smitty.
25, yeah.
So let's get rolling here. So Odell jumping into wine, CANarchy, spirits, and hard seltzer. Maui, canned cocktails and hard seltzer. And I'm sure you guys are working on a whole other bunch of innovation out there that I don't even know about yet, and you're going to tell us all about here momentarily. So when you guys are looking to get into these beyond beer spaces, what considerations do you guys make? I'll start with you, Smitty.
You know, we look at everything. I think the meeting we had this week, we're already talking about what we're doing in 2021. You have to look so much farther ahead than we did in the past, when you could just be quick and nimble and move some things. But we have a dedicated team. You know, we have 150 strong, and we engage with all of our coworkers, co-owners now, on ideas. And so everything's on the table, and we look at everything that comes in front of us that someone brings as an idea. You know, we looked at distilling 5 years ago. We had an exploratory committee for a long time looking at that, and ultimately walked away. We looked at seltzer. We have it on tap in our tap rooms, but ultimately decided to walk away from that as well, and never say never on that. But at this point, we aren't. And then as we got into, mostly innovation is around beer, and hops and everything we're doing in that field. But when we talk about different varieties, old varieties that are coming back, I think we brought out a Goza 5-6 years ago. That was probably too early to bring out a Goza. So, sometimes it's the timing of when you bring things out. So, but now that we're looking, in the future, more and more ideas come up. And when we brought up wine, someone on our maintenance team brought it up. Well, why don't we
Maintenance team?
Yes, actually. And so we explored that idea, and there was a lot of passion around it. And we have a great team that we put in place outside the executive team that kind of has done all the work on it, with a lot of help from others and consultants and other wineries and other people that are into it. So it takes a village for sure.
Yeah. Matt, what's CANarchy's approach to innovation?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Justin, thanks for having me here today. It's an honor to be up here again. And I was here last year with you, so thank you.
We just keep it booked for you.
We take a little bit different of approach, and we let data really drive our decisions. And it's important to make sure that you're reading the data correctly. And I think a lot of companies really look at data to try to validate some of the decisions that you've made, and you got to be really careful with that. But if you use data to look at white spaces and ultimately figure out where you aren't playing and where you are playing, it gives you an approach and an understanding of where you think that you can be successful. And one of the huge advantages of what CANarchy is doing is we've got 7 brands in our portfolio. And if you look collectively at those 7 brands, we've got 100 years of brewing experience. And what that comes with is 100 years of some good decisions and some really bad decisions. And if you can learn from those bad decisions, be it innovation, little things in your production facility, and ultimately learn from all of those mistakes and take those learnings and the winnings, you can be a much better company.
Garrett, what considerations does Maui make?
I think ultimately for us, I was asked for a really simple business plan on some of these new products, what we're calling Beyond Beer. And I put it really simply. We just want to make cool shit. That was literally the genesis of the plan. And, we look at what's happening out in the market, and I think Hawaii is a really unique place for us to be exploring Beyond Beer, because everything has to be shipped in. So if there's something that's working in the mainland, if there's something that's working abroad, if there's something that we can get behind as a company, we might as well offer a local alternative to what's already being sold in the market. We, of course, take our Maui Brewing spin on it, and we keep it authentic, making it in Hawaii, keeping it as natural as possible. Sustainability is a really huge factor for us as well. But if any of these other liquids, if you will, meet criteria for us and we can actually get behind them, then why not make them? We have the capabilities there, and we can continue to run and use our equipment more rather than shutting down at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So hard seltzer was a big one for us. That was hard to get behind at first, but it really took one of our staff parties. We do these team building, basically pauhanas, drink beer at the beach. I just didn't give them any beer. I just loaded the coolers with all kinds of hard seltzer. And there were a lot of, WTFs, if you will. I'll try to not curse as much. But we came back from that, and everybody was like, oh, okay, this is different than I thought. But we also have to educate our team. We can't say, go make this. We have to have that team buy-in. And so really having them understand not only what we want to make, how we want to make it, but collectively decide we're going to do it together, and ultimately what that means for the financial success of the company, because everybody benefits from that.
I'll stick with you, Garrett. How hard is it to get that buy-in, and how do these products fit with Maui's brand identity?
Well, so we've broken up the brands a little bit. So Maui Brewing Company, of course, so craft brewery at our heart, always be our core business. I think Maui Hard Seltzer is somewhat of a sidestep from the brand. And then our distillery is called Kupu Spirits. Kupu means new growth or kind of offshoot. And it really refers to like a fern. You know, you have this existing base and you have these kupus or offshoots that come from the center. And it's nurtured by Maui Brewing Company being that base. So to get the buy-in, it really comes from the education side of things on what the processes are to make the different beverages. But then also, like I said, drilling down to the finances and saying, well, here's the bonus pool now. And here's if we hit these targets, this is where that grows because it's all percentage of EBITDA. So the team could actually start to see how if we become more efficient, if we are selling more, if we're making more, how that actually directly impacts the things that we want to do within the brewery, but also their pockets directly. And I hate to bring it all down to money, but at the end of the day, sometimes that's what makes the decision. But then others come down and say, well, you know, I developed a gluten allergy, you know, and I really like the idea that we're making a gluten-free gin. You know, I love the idea that we're going to make a hard seltzer because, hey, I'm trying to lose weight or whatever it might be. So every different product resonates differently with each team member.
Matt, CANarchy moved very aggressively into hard seltzer. You guys launched Wild Basin at the end of 2018. You went hard to make that a national brand. How has that bet paid off? And you guys have also launched a number of seltzers for your other brands. How do you sort of work that into those brands' identities?
Yeah, absolutely. And every brand that you put together or you launch in any of the breweries in our collective, it needs to have an identity, right? If you look at just the individual brands in any given brewery, each of those brands has its own identity. And if you can't create that identity with a hard seltzer brand or a beer brand, it's not going to have legs. And so about a year and a half ago, based on data, we have quarterly innovation meetings, and it's everybody in the collective. We're looking at white space, looking at opportunities, and we looked at what was happening in the hard seltzer category, and we think, all right, we've got 2 national brands in Oscar Blues and Cigar City, 2 regional brands in Deep Ellum, Squatters and Wasatch, and then 2 local brands in Three Weavers and Perrin, which is based in Michigan. And ultimately, we saw the white space, and we developed a plan to tackle it on a national level with Oscar Blues, and we had to think of a way to develop a lifestyle brand. Oscar Blues has always stood for drink beer, ride bikes, repeat. And if you go mountain biking afterwards and you drink a Dale's Pale Ale, it just tastes better than any Dale's you've ever had. And so we developed a lifestyle brand around Wild Basin. And when we make big bets, we want to do it with Oscar Blues or with Cigar City because we can go national. We can go national quickly. But then we look at it, if it's working on the national level, maybe it is going to work on the local level. And there's a couple things that we liked about the local level. On the Utah side, so Squatters is based in Utah, it's a 4% market. So everything that's sold on tap, on draft is 4%, while Basin was a 5% beer. And everything that's sold in grocery stores is 4%. And so there was a niche in that market. And so we developed a brand and a great liquid in Granger Peak and attacked the Utah market.
How big is seltzer going to be for you this year?
That's a good question. We've continued to see the rate of sale as we've gone through the summer, and you think of how many people are drinking hard seltzers and the velocity of that. You'd expect it to peak in the summer months. Our rate of sale is continuing to accelerate, and I think that's due in part because people are switching; they're starting to drink it. But right now, we forecast that we'll ship about 40,000 barrels of hard seltzer this year.
Smitty, Odell is zagging while everybody else is going to seltzer and canned cocktails. How does that fit into Odell's identity? Why is that the play?
With wine, you know, it was a play because there's passion there. A lot of us drink wine as well, and spirits. But wine, like I said, we weren't going down to distilling in the spirits space. But with wine, I think first and foremost, we had some relationships with our hop growers. And our hop growers sell grapes or grow grapes right alongside the hops. And we purchased our first grapes last couple of weeks ago from one of a long-time relationships we have. And then a number of people from our brewers are out there now selecting grapes as we speak. So a lot of thought went into it, but we're going to do wine with craft beer lens. We're a brewery first and foremost, and we'll be able to innovate and tell the story of wine, of just how the Odells have built the company with beer as well.
That's a point you bring up, is your brewery first and foremost. But a lot of what I'm hearing lately from beer companies is they're calling themselves beverage companies now. So I'm curious how each of you sort of view your own companies at this point. We'll kick it off with you, Smitty.
Sure. We've talked about that in the past, and I don't think we're trying to be a beverage company. I think we are a brewery. We had to make a separate license with wine, and so it's a different company. It's still going to be a smaller percentage of our business. Never say never, but we don't know what we'll grow into. But first and foremost, beer is who we are, and the love of hops and the varieties we do there. We worked. We have over 700 barrels we've worked with over the years in our Cellar Series program, working with, raspberries and cherries and peaches and everything else. So we have some experience in that field. But what turns on, what pays for the lights and everything is beer, and I think we'll continue to even bring out wine as a brewery.
Yeah, Garrett, how do you view Maui at this point?
When we talked about this before, I think I was very quick to say that we're a craft brewery at our heart, at our core, and we'll always be that. But we are morphing into a craft beverage company. It's hard for me to even call hard seltzer beer, even though it's defined as that. I still just think of it as seltzer.
Everything's beer, Garrett. Jim Cook will tell you everything is beer now.
Sure. Well, and so for us, we look at it as its distinct beverage. We have a joint venture coffee company called Origin Coffee. So we have so many more beverages now that we have to look at things collectively, and we never want one of them to suffer because it didn't get the attention that our beer got. So it's why I said earlier, as long as it meets certain objectives, it's something that we can get behind. We're going to pour every ounce, if you will, of our mana, that is Maui Brewing Company, into all these other brands. So it makes us, by definition, I think, a craft beverage company. I'm not embarrassed to look at craft beer as a business. I think anybody who's not looking at it as a business is certainly having some difficulties in this market. That doesn't mean that it's not 110% passion from every one of us every day. We were the 10th brewery to put beer in cans. We were the first ones to brew a coconut porter. None of those things are ever going to change. These new beverages are just going to be things that we do very much the way we did them with beer. And that'll lead us into the future. Again, being a strong regional in one of the most isolated group of islands in the world. We were talking earlier, 2,500 miles I have to travel to go anywhere. We might as well own the fact that we're making cool shit, but it doesn't always just have to be beer anymore.
Are you going to put that on cans or T-shirts?
I don't think I can get that by TTB.
You can't.
But
Matt, how does CANarchy view it? Are you guys a beverage company?
With the fray into hard seltzer, we've always thought of ourselves as a beverage company. If you think of some of the entrepreneurs that built what CANarchy is today, Oscar Blues and Dale Katechis, who is one of the brightest entrepreneurs I've seen, he wanted to put everything that he could in a can, and it wasn't necessarily beer. So he started a soda business over 10 years ago. He had a coffee business. We tried Moscow Mules in a can 3 or 4 years ago with a local distillery in Longmont, Colorado. And I think we sold a grand total of 10 cases of it. It wasn't a great endeavor. Joey Redner, who founded Cigar City, had a cider and a mead. And so we've always thought of ourselves as a beverage company. And I think if you can think as a beverage company, there's so much more white space that you can play in. And the success that we've had in the hard seltzer category, it gives you credibility. And ultimately, last year's topic was about share of mind, and right now we've got our distributors and retail partners listening because we are in that category. And when you're bringing fresh ideas and you're working with your distributors and your retail partners on new products, and you have that share of mind with them, it's a huge competitive advantage, and it's an opportunity to continue building your portfolio and ultimately your distributor's portfolio.
Has this changed the mindshare game? Do these products get you guys more mindshare with your wholesalers than you would have had before?
I would say absolutely. I've been to 2 ABP meetings, so we're in ABP season right now. I've been to 2 ABP meetings, and when you are successful on innovation, and we're not going to hit 1,000% every time, each year on innovation. But if you hit 300, 400, 500 on innovation, they're excited about, hey, what's coming. And when you're working with your distribution partners and they're part of the innovation process, you're absolutely gaining that share of mind. And what you really need to do is look yourself in a mirror. And it's hard to say, all right, we're going to get rid of this brand. And we've had to do that at Oscar Blues. And when you kill brands, but you have something that's in the back burner to fill it, ultimately, if you have a successful track record on innovation, your distribution partners and your retail partners are going to get behind that brand. And it's tough. And we're going to cut a brand or two next year across the portfolio. But with the success that we've had this year, both on the seltzer front and the beer front, it gives your distributor partners much more confidence.
Garrett, what are you hearing from your wholesalers?
I'd agree with that. I mean, our wholesaler, especially in Hawaii, we'll top out around 60,000 barrels this year. That's obviously a lot of beer for us when we started, 15 years ago. January is our anniversary. We've built a brand that 80% of our sales is Hawaii, so we're very strong in our home market and continuing to grow. So our wholesalers, whatever you can get us, and we ask them, for timelines, they say yesterday. Can we just make sure Maui's huge on that label because they want to have the brand equity that we created with Maui Brewing Company into these new brands that we're offering. And even though we've had some of our brands be kind of sisters or siblings, if you will, to Maui Brewing, they're very much brought to you by Maui Brewing. They're labeled as such, so that there is a touch point back. We didn't have it easy starting a distillery and getting into other beverages. We had to change state law to do that. So once that happened, it took a long time for it to happen and actually be recognized. Then our wholesaler was like, wait, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And they would rather stand behind a brand that they have 100% love for. And that really is a huge part of their business. So when we bring something else on, it's not a question of, hey, do you guys want this? They just, how much can you give us? And they get behind it and run with it.
Awesome. Local has been such a big part of the craft ethos. And I've heard each of you sort of mention local being important here. Are these Beyond Beer products going to have the same local appeal that craft products have had in the past? Start with you, Smitty.
And that's where we're going to go with it first. Wine is going to be, first and foremost in our tap room next door to our brewery. We have some space we purchased probably 5-6 years ago, so that's where the winery will be. And we're going to grow the brand out of Fort Collins into Denver with our wholesaler, and to piggyback what they're saying with our distributors. Before we got into this venture, we met with our distributors and talked about it. So Breakthrough Beverage here in Denver is our largest wholesaler, and they're heavily into wine and spirits. And so we sat down with them almost as a consultant and talked through, and they were very excited about it. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to sell it in Colorado. We sell 65% of our beer here in Colorado, and we plan on selling the majority of our wine, here in Colorado as well. So the local aspect of it with tap rooms, with here in Denver, here in Fort Collins, and then with the wine is where it needs to grow first. If you can't sell it here, you aren't going to be able to move it to other markets as well.
Matt, with 7 brands, can they have the local appeal with these Beyond Beer products?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're proving that with Clear Coast in the state of Michigan, which is Perrin's Seltzer, and then Grand Peak, which is Squatter Seltzer in the state of Utah. And if you look at the rate of sale of Wild Basin, which is Oscar Blues' seltzer, it's the rate of sale is strongest in Colorado, North Carolina, and Texas, which there's no surprise. We've got a home brewery in those states. Everybody loves local, right? You want to support your local bar, local purveyors. And so as long as you're creating a quality product and you can build a brand around it, we do think that there's an opportunity for localness on Beyond Beer.
Garrett, local alternative in Hawaii?
Sure. No secret, I'm a huge fan of local and authenticity specifically. So we don't like it when people fake it. But for us, local's changed. I mean, we all remember when, if it was made in the state, it was local. Now I've been on Oahu and I've heard, oh, that's not local, it's made on Maui. It's across the streets in a different neighborhood. Oh, that's not local, that's whatever that neighborhood is. It's crazy, but I think it has continued to hurt us in the mainland sales, where in some markets we're up, some markets we're flat, but up is not a huge amount. But back home, we've been on this rocket ride trajectory with our brand, and that's because local is so important overall. These new brands are absolutely very much local. None of them being sold outside of Hawaii, and we don't have any plans to at the moment. Before we look to export out of Hawaii, we have to look at it in the framework of, okay, well, here's our beer portfolio at, say, 60,000 barrels. Let's make that super efficient, because going into that first barrel after 60, our taxes are going to more than quadruple on every barrel after that. So for us, we look at how do we become a lean, mean, 60,000 barrel a year brewery. Of course, we'll continue to grow that number, but mostly for export. And we may even pare back some of our mainland markets as we need more beer for Hawaii, because that shipping component that we have that most don't, especially across water, it's a lot more expensive. We have to really be conscious of that. So we can look to keep these beverages that are in high demand in Hawaii to make up some of that other incremental volume of beer. So we look at it in a bunch of different ways, but ultimately Kupu Spirits, which is, again, our canned cocktails as well as spirits, and as well as Maui Hard Seltzer, Origin Coffee, Island Sodas, because we have a non-alcoholic soda line. Those are all Hawaii only at the moment.
Garrett, do you think a company can make it on beer alone now?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's being proven every day. There are new breweries opening up that aren't just successful in the near term because they're new, because let's face it, new is what everybody always wants. I think the ones with good pedigrees, the ones with quality beer, again, the ones with quality beer have a real opportunity to grow. Your expectations might be different. I think starting out today and saying that you're going to be the largest regional brewer in that area, that's kind of some lofty expectations, and it takes some real money probably to get to that point. But I think of like New Realm, right, out on the East Coast, and you got a guy like Mitch Steele on that team putting together an amazing team of brewers and out the gate making amazing beer. Of course, I think there's success there. But if it's either a hobby or you're underfunded or you're not making killer beer, I think it's going to be very difficult to be successful. I do think we'll see the rate of closings continue to increase.
About a year ago, in December, the BA changed the definition of what it means to be a craft brewer, and that seems to have opened up a lot of playbooks. Did that change factor into any of your decisions to make these Beyond Beer products, or were you guys going to do it regardless? I'll start with Matt.
Not at all. We don't follow what they're doing, and ultimately we're going to work with the end consumer, our distribution partners and retail partners to figure out where the white space is and where we want to play.
How about you, Smitty?
No, it didn't. It wasn't a factor at all. I mean, there was already breweries that are in the BA, like Sam Adams and others that were in that space. So it wasn't really something that even came up.
Garrett, you've been very active with the BA. How did that factor into your decision making?
Really not at all on the new beverages. I have to take off Maui Brewing hats or any other brand hat that I wear when I walk into that room for the BA board meetings, because full disclosure, I'm on the board of directors. That was a tough meeting. It was a very tough meeting, but I understand the reasoning behind it. I had no idea how many other breweries across our entire membership base that were already making other than beer, and how much of it was being made by these breweries. Some that were approaching 50% soda, some that were already huge into FSBs. So as much as everybody wants to point the finger at the Sam Adams, the Boston Beer, the Truly, that conglomerate, it just wasn't true. The BA does not make decisions based on one company alone. But when you look at membership and you look at what everybody was making, or even more so, what they plan to make in the future, we have to evolve as an entity to accommodate, to really promote and protect our membership. That's our number one charge. But for us, making hard seltzer didn't really impact that. Like I said earlier, I don't consider hard seltzer beer from what I like to drink. I always think of craft beer very differently than that, but it doesn't mean you can't make it in that same ethos. So the definition, I think, is where it should be for the moment. But
it's ever
I don't
evolving.
have a crystal ball, so I don't know what's going to come out next. If we could all sit up here and tell you what we should do for the definition later, we would all know with perfect accuracy what all the white space in the world was. And we don't. So
what is the white space now?
I'm just focused on what we're doing. I need to get past the hard seltzer launch, and when I get Talk to me in 2020. I'll start having the wheels turning again.
You're thinking about 2021. Where
We
are
are.
you seeing the white space, man?
The white space might even be items and styles that have been around for hundreds of years. Because Goza and other styles have come back into the fold. So there might be white space within beer. I wish I knew. The next white space after seltzer.
Matt, you've got, how many minds in a room at any time throwing out ideas? Where's the white space that CANarchy's going, that everybody's going to be following in the next 3 years?
I wish I had that answer. I grew up in Canada, and I like to. We talk about where the puck is and where the puck's going. And if we knew where the puck was going all the time, you'd score a hell of a lot more goals. But we like to use data and talking to consumers, and we've got 16 brew pubs and tap rooms, and we try, countless numbers of different products on the beer side, beyond beer side. But ultimately, it's listening to your customers and watching trends, watching data, and look, we're going to launch some products that are going to be failures. But ultimately, if you can keep that 300 batting average or a 400 batting average, and if you can get lucky and start creating the white space based on data and trends, you can get ahead of it.
So we've got a lot of brewers in the room today. What advice would you give to them when they're considering to get into these areas? Start with Smitty.
I thought about this question when you put it out there, and make it goes back to local. Make sure it works first and foremost in your local market, in your tap rooms, and in the towns that your breweries are in. But then also do something that you're passionate about. If you're not passionate about something you're bringing out, you're just bringing it out because that's where the trend is going. You got to make sure that you want to do that, and you'll stand behind it, and you get buy-in from your coworkers, and they want to do it as well. But there's a lot of white space and a lot of different things, and I think first and foremost, if they're passionate about beer, then continue to brew beer.
Seems simple enough, right? Matt, what advice would you give people considering getting into these areas?
Both of these guys have said buy-in with the team. That's huge. And it's buy-in with the team. It's buy-in with retail partners and your distribution partners. But in the end of the day, you need to make sure that you can make a quality liquid, and you need to develop a brand around. And if you can get excited about the brand and excited about the product, it's going to work. I'll tell you, we started ideating on Wild Basin in January of 2018, and we had a lot of the same looks. Like, we're gonna do what? And ultimately, when we started seeing what the brand was looking like, and Wild Basin is this beautiful, beautiful body of water. It's a reservoir in Rocky Mountain National Park. The St. Vrain River goes through it. It's the source of water for Longmont. It's Longmont's production facility. And ultimately, we built a brand around it. I remember at our Christmas party, which was, I think, January of this, we do it afterwards. It was January of this year, and at 5 or 6 o'clock when I walked in, there's 100 people in the room, and everybody's drinking beer. By 9 o'clock, I would say 80% of the category, or 80% of everybody in there was drinking Wild Basin. And I remember talking to other people like, holy smokes, this is going to absolutely take off. But when you can get behind a brand and you have a quality liquid, I wouldn't shy away from getting into anything. There's plenty of companies in consumer product spaces. If everybody looked at a space and said, okay, I'm not going to sell shoes because back at 15 years ago, Nike, Adidas, and Reebok dominated, we wouldn't have any of the great shoe companies that have come out in the last 10 years. So if you can get behind something, you can get buy-in from your teams and ultimately create a great product, you can be successful.
Garrett, final advice?
Sure. I 100% agree with both Smitty and Matt. I mean, that the buy-in's important, getting behind a product. Ultimately, I would say don't do it because everybody else is doing it. That's usually not a great idea. It's the whole jumping off a bridge thing. Although that's fun too. It really for me just comes down to the team buy-in. Is it something that I'm going to treat like it's an outcast from the outset? So if my team came and said, hey, we really need to jump in on this not your father's ginger beer or root beer, the sugary alcohol thing they did a while ago, that was a flash in the pan. There was no chance of me ever getting behind that. And I would have looked at it in a kind of, I'm not really too excited there. But if you can get behind it individually, it's going to be a lot easier to develop the buy-in with the team because you use that as a teaching moment for not only the production side, but also for the financial side. And, I'm not going to be in charge of Maui Brewing Company forever. I recognize that. I recognize in some cases there's probably better people out there to run it than I do currently. So I need to take every opportunity I have with my team to not just say, do this or we're doing that, but to educate every single one of them on the processes. So I think, again, don't do it just because everyone else is doing it. Talk to your wholesalers, talk to your customers. You know, it needs to be something that comes from a place of passion. And I've seen, I'm sure you all had nothing but beer the entire time you were here either, right? So beer judges are posting, I need a palate cleanser, and it's a Manhattan sitting in front of them. So if we as brewers are just going to sit here and say we shouldn't make any other beverages, we need to look at ourselves. And, you know, that's something that I started realizing, just like you said. Everybody's crushing beers, and then, well, you know, it's kind of time for a whiskey. Well, let's make whiskey because we're all excited about that. So it comes down to, like I said, the passion, the excitement, and, you know, find a way to do it your way, though. And I had a friend recently from a brewery up this way say, I can't get behind hard seltzer. I can't get behind this hazy thing. He's like, but our sales are dropping and I just can't do it. And I think he was expecting me to, that's okay. And I told him, no, man, like, you run a business. Your job is to put food on the table for your family. Your job is to keep your team employed, to pay the benefits. I said, find a way to do them your way. Just try it. If you don't like it, and if you decide, you know what, this just isn't for me, then stick to your guns and do it the way you're doing now. But if you see your sales increasing and you're finding ways to tweak what is a hazy, what hard seltzer could be to your brewery, get excited about that and own it that way. And that's something that I think is very different. Doesn't have to be the way we do things or any of your friends do it. Find your way and follow that path.
I think that's a great way to end it. Now that we're done talking about Beyond Beer products, let's go drink some Dogfish beers and chat for a bit, and then we'll come back with Sam Calagione. So thank you to these guys.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.